Is Harry Potter a ripoff of Star Wars? A gifted young orphan is sent to live with his aunt and uncle to be kept safe. He's eventually trained by the same person who left him there as a baby. He then ends up learning a lot more about his magic from a wiser master. His uncle is against him learning this magic and won't even tell him what really happened to his parents.
Harry Potter is a ripoff of Star Wars? Hear me out. Orphan gets dropped off at his uncle's house by a bearded guy. Now him, his other guy friend, and the guy's love interest all team up to take on a black-dressed villain.
Harry Potter is a ripoff of Star Wars.
J.K. Rowling did not write a masterpiece. She wrote Star Wars.
So I decided, why not change location today for this video? I don't know, I've just been sitting in front of the same bookshelf for the past, I don't know, 10 or 15 videos, and I decided to just change location for this one. So, also, by the way, I have like the worst headache ever right now because I just did a belly flop on top of my brother, and when I did, he shoved me forward and then my head hit the wall. So, there are so many people I've met, and just so much like YouTube shorts that I've seen, with people claiming that Harry Potter is just a Star Wars ripoff, and nothing really special at all in the slightest. The thing they always say is, oh, there's an orphan guy, this white-haired, wise, bearded guy drops him up at his aunt and uncle's house. They won't tell him about his magical powers, but then the guy from before who dropped him off teaches him about his magical powers and trains him in them, ends up dying later on, spoilers, and I've always just found this to be very, very ridiculous. Like, okay, he gets dropped off at his aunt and uncle's house by a bearded guy. Lots of people have aunts and uncles, and there are lots of bearded guys out there. I myself am a bearded guy, even though it may not seem so from this distance here. If I get up closer. I don't know if you can see, I think I have some hair down there. A little hair. I don't know. Also, Obi-Wan doesn't really have much of a beard, while Dumbledore, it could be said, does have much of a beard. There are lots of bearded guys out there. Dumbledore's beard is enormous and Obi-Wan's beard is small. There are lots of enormous beards out there, there are lots of small beards out there. This isn't something that I think J.K. Rowling explicitly took from Star Wars. Also, the whole thing with, like, you know, they team up to fight against an antagonist who's dressed in black is just so ridiculous. Tons of antagonists are dressed in black. Sauron dresses in black, Morgoth dresses in black, and yes, both Voldemort and Darth Vader dress up in black. It is worth noting that Voldemort is not Harry's father. Harry, I am your father. So sure, the stories do start out sort of similar, but the similarities just kind of end about a quarter through the first Harry Potter book. And people accuse so many stories and books and movies of being just a ripoff of something that's come before. And they bring this up as a reason to say that that thing is terrible. Like, oh, the Aragon series is terrible because it's just a Lord of the Rings ripoff. Lord of the Rings is terrible because it's just a Beowulf ripoff. Harry Potter is terrible because it's just a Star Wars ripoff. Star Wars is terrible because it's just a Dune ripoff. And I just always find this to be so ridiculous. Because you can't really accuse a story of taking something from another story. Every single story out there, especially today, takes something or other from some other story that's come before. If originality was ever a thing, it died decades and probably even centuries ago. Pretty much every story is just taking things from other stories before it. The Bible is where it all started. The Bible has a ton of tropes in it that later get into these fictional stories. So I think it all started with the Bible, with true events, and then people took that and put it into their fictional stories. Shakespeare himself took a lot of things from the Bible, and from history before him. Tolkien took from Beowulf, and Christopher Paolini and J.K. Rowling took from Tolkien. Frank Herbert took from the Bible, and Star Wars took from Frank Herbert. But I don't think that that makes them rip-offs. And now I just want to clarify something here. This is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with me, but this right here is just me sharing my opinion, and I'm not trying to say, like, I'm right and anyone who says opposite is wrong. I'm just sharing my opinion right now. And yes, the general plot structure and maybe some of the characters in Harry Potter are slightly similar to the characters in Star Wars, and the plot of Star Wars. That does not make Harry Potter a ripoff of Star Wars, because it just has so much more in it than Star Wars. I've heard people say that the wands in Harry Potter are just lame lightsabers. And that right there is even more ridiculous than what they've said before. Wands have been around before Harry Potter. Harry Potter did not invent wands. Wands were not inspired by lightsabers, obviously. Also, Harry Potter does have a lot more in common with J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, but that definitely does not make it a Lord of the Rings ripoff. In my opinion, I don't think there even is a such thing as ripoffs. And essentially, originality doesn't even exist. If it ever did, it's dead now. And originality does not matter in stories. What really matters in stories is the execution. For example, I'm not a published author yet, but I've written a couple books. I'm writing my magnum opus right now, which, if it ever does get published, it will be within the next, somewhere in between like 5 and 10 years. But I have found that writing my own books and creating my own fantasy world in my mind, I have had a lot of good ideas, but those were pretty easy to come by. What was much more difficult for me in writing my books was the execution. The ideas were way, way easier than the execution. Ideas are easy, the execution is difficult. So I just want to say, don't judge a story based on its originality, rather judge it based on its quality and how well they executed their story. Yes, Tolkien took from Beowulf. And yes, Harry Potter did take from Tolkien, but that is definitely not going to ruin the stories for me. I still enjoy both stories. Tolkien is my favorite author of all time, but I will always love Harry Potter and the Inheritance Cycle and the Wheel of Time and all these other series that did definitely take from Tolkien. That is not going to ruin my enjoyment of them. And especially, if you do enjoy Star Wars and then you say that Harry Potter is terrible because it took from Star Wars, that confuses me, because if you love Star Wars, then wouldn't you love Harry Potter for being similar to Star Wars, even though, it is not that similar at all. A bit of the plot structure at the beginning is similar, the characters are similar. Beyond that, they don't really have much in common. If a story took from another story before it, that does not ruin the story in any way at all. Execution is what matters. Oh, one more thing I just forgot. So, let me grab it here. I wrote, speaking of ripoffs, and I'm not saying this is a ripoff or anything, but speaking of all this, I recently wrote a short story, well, sort of short, it's somewhere in between a short story and a novella, I guess. It is called The Worst of Times. And the idea for this story was easy to come by. And I did take from other stories before me, I took from H.G. Wells. The plot is basically a guy from the year 2025 time travels into the year 2098, and by then, AI is taking over and all this. Those ideas were all easy to come by, but the execution was way more difficult. So don't judge a story based on what was easy to put into the story, but what the author actually put the hard work into doing. And also, I'm at 4,000 subscribers. I cannot thank you all enough. I never thought that would happen, but I decided, once I hit 5,000 subscribers, I will read you this 30-page short story novella thing that I wrote in one day. I'm still going to edit a bit more of it, and I don't think this is ever going to get published. I just sort of wrote it for fun, but I figured, if I'm not going to get it published, why not read it aloud on my YouTube channel? So once I hit 5,000 subscribers, I will read you this 30-page story that I wrote. It is a science fiction story about a guy who travels into the future, which was an easy idea to come by, but the execution was much more difficult. Anyway, just wanted to tell you that when I hit 5,000 subscribers, I will read you this short story novella thing, and you can tell me what you think about it. I'm definitely not going to get this published, but I decided it would just be fun to read it on my YouTube channel as a reward for 5,000 subscribers. So anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. I just wanted to make a short video talking about all these rip-off discussions that I see going everywhere. Is this a rip-off of this? Is that a rip-off of that? And I just find it all to be so ridiculous, and I just decided to just share my thoughts and opinions on all these whole rip-off discussions here in this video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and for now, farewell.